I like to tell you about what I found Christians doing on this internet. Welcome to the Christian Geek Radar. Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com with your Christian Geek Radar covering the month of, what would it be, June? June 2017. I actually don't have anything in the way of like news updates to report in the world of Christian geekery, but I still wanted to highlight some stuff, and I picked the theme of Christian sci-fi stories and worlds, and so I've got some novelists to share with you, and also a couple, at least one or two video games to share with you. The first is John Del Arroz, who writes steampunk and science fiction, and you can find him over at Del Arroz, DELARROZ.com, where you can find the books he's written, including for Steam and Country and Star Realms, which is part of, I think, the fictional universe of a deck building game. Yeah. And anyway, and he's got a nice sense of humor on his site. Under testimonials, it says testimonials on how author John Del Arroz has changed the lives of others through his writings. And then he's got quotes like delusional, says Bane author Sharon Lee. Boorish, says Babylon 5 writer and creator J. Michael Straczynski. Reading comprehension saves lives, but your lack thereof gets you my mute button, says author Catherine Locke. If you want drinking before thinking, he's your man, says author and storyteller M. Todd Galloglass. Galloglass? I don't know how you say that. And egregiously stupid, says SFWA President Cat Rambo. But if you go over to his the page on Amazon.com for his book For Steam and Country, you can get a nice description and also some much more flattering testimonials. Let me read the description for the book For Steam and Country. It says, her father's been pronounced dead. Destructive earthquakes ravage the countryside. An invading army looms over the horizon. And Zyra's day is just getting started. I'm saying Zyra, by the way, because it's Z-A-I-R-A, and I don't know, it could be Zayra, but I'm going to say Zyra, because that's what I'm going to say. Abandoned at an early age, Zyra von Monocle, which is a great name, found life as the daughter of a great adventurer to be filled with hard work and difficulty. She quickly learned to rely on only herself. But when a messenger brought news that her father was dead and that she was the heir to his heirship, her world turned upside down. Zyra, I almost said Zayra. Zyra soon finds herself trapped in the midst of a war between her home country of Rislandia and the cruel Wyrinth Empire, whose soldiers are acting peculiarly almost inhuman. With the enemy army advancing, her newfound ship's crew may be the only ones who can save the kingdom. For Steam and Country is the first book in the Adventures of Baron von Monocle series by top 10 Amazon best-selling space opera author John Del Arroz. Witty, charming, and downright thrilling, Del Arroz nails the feel of good old-fashioned steampunkery with wit, aplomb, and of course panache, says Nick Cole, author of the Dragon Award winner Control-Alt-Revolt. And For Steam and Country is a rousing, girl-powered fantasy tale. I thoroughly enjoyed this action-packed airship adventure, says Laurie Forrest, author of The Black Witch. So anyway, you can get more about John Del Arroz by visiting his site at DELARROZ.com. Let's see here, and moving on. Before I move on, though, I want to thank Adam Collings and his YouTube channel, which features the show Christian Science Fiction and Fantasy Bulletin, which he puts out every month and is always very useful to me when I'm putting together the Christian Geek Radar. Next up is Kathy Tyers, which I think that's how you say her name. I don't know. I should know by now. She's been around forever. She was like the first Christian science fiction author I had ever heard of. When I ran into one of her books in a Christian bookstore way back in college, this would be like late 90s, early 2000s, I was like, oh my gosh, someone is doing Christian sci-fi and it's not about the end times. Let's see here. The brief little bio, there's a full-length bio on her site, in which I found out she actually comes from Montana, which is where I come from as well. But anyway, it says, Kathy Tyers is the author of the Firebird series, Firebird, Fusion Fire, Crown of Fire, Wind and Shadow, and Daystar, of the standalone science fiction novels Shivering World, Crystal Witness, and One Mind's Eye, and the Star Wars universe novels Truce at Bakura and New Jedi Order Balance Point. I remember a person in college. I'm almost sure this really happened. I'm not positive. That said to me that they've got this friend they said she has written a Star Wars novel. And I said, oh, really? What Star Wars? And they said Truce at Bakura. And I was like, I don't know, sounds boring, And it's like, no, it's really good. And this. I mean, it was more of an acquaintance than a friend. I since can't remember who the friend was, and I've totally lost touch with him. Of course, anyway. But now I wish I could go back in time and ask more questions. Dang it! Because they said specifically that this person was a Christian. But anyway, so yeah, there's just a bunch. You can find her Firebird Trilogy, which Enclave Publishing is now republishing in new editions. And let me read you the synopsis here of the first book in the Firebird Trilogy. It says on the little promotional thing here, Enclave Publishing has re-released Firebird, making this the first book of the award-winning Firebird series available as a single volume for the first time since 1999. New editions of all five... Oh, it's not a trilogy, dummy. Sorry, guys. New editions of all five Firebird series novels are planned. Lady Firebird, it says in the description, was born to the royal family of Nataya, but her life is expendable. Honorable suicide is the highest calling she could hope to attain. When she is chosen to lead an attack on the neighboring non-combatant planet of Vero, dang it, all these like fictional places and people. So anyway, when she's chosen to lead an attack on the neighboring non-combatant planet of Vero, her death is expected. Instead, she is taken prisoner during the battle and is held by the enemy. With her own people seeking her sacrifice, Firebird must choose between two worlds before she can carve out her new destiny. This is the story of Lady Firebird's personal battle and its eternal consequences, not only for herself, but for everyone around her, and especially the man who loves her. So you can get more on Kathy Tyers and her books by going to Kathy Tyers, Kathy, and then her last name is spelled Tyers.com. Let's see here. And then the last author that I'm going to focus on is Timothy C. Ward. I've mentioned one of his book releases on this segment, or do you call it a segment if it's on YouTube? On the podcast, it's a segment. On YouTube, it's a thing. What do I call it? Show? I don't know what to call this. On the Christian Greek is a Greek radar. Crap! Jeez, I'm not editing. I got other stuff I gotta do and get done today. Okay, so Timothy C. Ward. And specifically I'm gonna highlight, since last time I think I highlighted God's Knife Revolt, this time I'm gonna zoom in a little bit on his book, Scavenger Evolution. And the description reads, some treasure hunters will never learn. In an effort to save his wife, sand diver Rush Stenson is blackmailed into uncovering a lost city and the power behind the apocalypse. If he doesn't lock it back up, the wrong hands will use it to enslave what's left of humanity. Inspired by the world created by Hugh Howey in his novel Sand, written and sold with his permission, the Sand Divers books are a standalone duology loved by fans for its breakneck pace and under-sand knife fight, great special effects, and endearing characters that kept me wanting for more, unquote. I said unquote, but I didn't say quote at the beginning, so hopefully you were keeping pace. Sorry, guys. This cyberpunk post-apocalyptic thriller is an ideal fit for fans of Blake Crouch, Nicholas Sansbury-Smith, DJ Moles, Nick Cole, and Edward W. Robertson. Dang it! I know I mispronounced, I don't know, I probably mispronounced a couple of those names. I try to just say them with confidence so that you don't know, like when you're reading like really old Bible names in places. But that last one I stumbled on. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, so yeah, this is cyberpunk post-apocalyptic thriller. Which is, I really wanted to focus on science fiction type settings this time because I feel like they're a lot less common than fantasy settings in Christian fiction. I don't know if that's because fantasy lends itself, I think, a little bit more to the metaphorical and spiritual themes. I think it does. That's been my experience with fantasy. And sci-fi tends to be more cerebral and very often dominated by naturalistic worldviews, so I don't know if there's a connection there, but anyway, I really wanted to try and focus on science fiction this time around. The last thing I want to focus on is in the realm of science fiction, but it's a video game instead of a book, and that's Soma Games. If you go to somagames.com, you'll find three games, two that are still in development, which are Wind Up Robots and Redwall, which yes is based on the beloved Redwall books. I assume they're beloved because I've heard people talk about them and really hold them in high esteem, and the website says that they're beloved. So There you go. But the video game that has been released and is actually available both on Steam and Xbox One is G Prime, which is described as the first chapter in Soma Games' Ark Saga, and is a gorgeously rendered take on the classic gravity golf genre of puzzle games while adding unprecedented depth of story and adventure elements. So basically, from what I can gather in this game, you are kind of controlling a ship in space that is doing certain things that I'm sure the story will explain. And one reviewer that I checked out about this game just said he was surprised and delighted at the amount of story and world building and all the kind of the depth of the fiction of this world. Despite the fact that it's, kind of just a physics puzzle game. You are kind of controlling the ship and then shooting off these rockets that are supposed to go on a specific course. And so you are determining settings like thruster speed, the length that you're burning the thruster, and you're factoring in the gravity of nearby bodies in space, as you're trying to get this rocket to go where it's supposed to go. And it's got kind of a neat, kind of retro sci-fi interface where you're getting your missions from like this old school threaded printer, and it almost has, I want to say, like a steampunk vibe to it when you're in the cockpit of the ship and kind of controlling, getting ready to take on the next mission, finding out the information that you need to in order to succeed in the mission. And so anyway, it looks really cool. And like I said, you can get that on Steam or Xbox One. Soma Games is an interesting little game studio. Let me see that they're where do we go here? Okay, yeah, they talk about. They are Christians making games from a Christian perspective, but I really find interesting, and I think it's actually great what they write in their on their about page. They have two paragraphs. One that says what's with quote unquote Soma, and they explain what that means and where it comes from. And of more interest to me is what they say under the heading "What Soma Games is Not." And that paragraph reads, while Soma Games is a group of Christians making video games, we're not what you might call a quote-unquote Christian video game company. And it's important for us to be very clear about this to avoid inaccurate expectations. We're making games that will be founded upon and informed by Christian thought and the Christian understanding of reality. However, we don't plan on making games that teach Christian theology. There are no scripture references, no biblical characters, and no telling of the Jonah story. Other companies have been there and done a fine job. We hope to try something a little different. And I think that's great to be breaking from the mold and always thinking about the different ways that we as Christians can enter into the creative space as we think about who our audience will be, how we want to communicate ideas to that audience, how much and how little we want to say about the gospel and about other biblical truths, and in what unique ways we can be a light and represent Christ in a certain setting and to a certain audience. So I really appreciate them just taking a unique approach and being very upfront about that as well. So anyway, hopefully they'll find tons of great success. And again, the name of that game is G Prime. You can find more information by going to somagames.com. All right, that is all I have for you for the Christian Geek Radar this month. Stay tuned next month where I'll hopefully have more fun things for you. In the meantime, I'd love it if you would stop by christiangeekcentral.com and join us there as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. Oh, and I almost forgot, if you are considering taking on the backlog burning, the deadline is August 9th. That's your last chance to get in touch with me and let me know that you've successfully completed a backlog burn. And basically what that means is you do 4 weeks, I think that's 28 days, is it the math on that? 4 weeks where you do not spend any money on entertainment for yourself. And you can interpret it however you want. It's very loosey-goosey, and it's all on the honor system. And if you do that, then your name will be celebrated in a video on the Christian Geek Central YouTube channel, and you'll also get to choose your choice of one free download product from spiritblade.com. So I just wanted to remind you guys of that. If you haven't started your backlog burn yet, check your calendar. Again, your deadline to let me know that you have completed yours is August 9th. So take a look at your calendar and have fun.